May you please assume the posture of prayer. O God, on this day that you have allowed us to see, we would be remiss by not saying thank you. Thank you for allowing us to see new opportunity daily. Thank you for allowing us to assemble in this sacred space. And just thank you for being who you are. Lord, bless this time that we have together. Let it be impacting and insightful so we can use it as fuel to continue the journey you have set for us. Strengthen us where we are weak. Guide us where there is lack of direction. In your name we pray. Amen. Next, we will hear from Zephyrinus Okonkwo.
The primary purpose of the Morehouse SGA Crown Forum is for elected and appointed officials to receive the SGA oath of office and to state our mission for the academic year in the face of the student body. The Morehouse SGA's function is to advocate and to provide a means through which student concerns are constructively addressed. Our number one priority is to provide Morehouse students with the opportunity to govern themselves accordingly. The SGA has played an integral role in reinventing Crown Forum and choosing Crown Forum speakers. Allowing students to display their intellectual, artistic, and other talents during Crown Forum was constructed with the help of members of the SGA and the student body. Another focus of the SGA Crown Forum is to evoke the greatness that lies within every student at this institution. I would like to conclude with a quote from Benjamin E. Mays that states, "Every man or woman is born into this world to do something unique and something distinctive, and if he or she does not do it, it will never be done." As we uplift one another, let us continue to uplift this institution to greater heights so that Morehouse will become an even greater Morehouse. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the occasion. Now here's Vice President Will Chandler with the SGA branches.
Good morning, men of Morehouse. The Student Government Association's mission is to provide a medium through which student concerns can be constructively addressed, to provide Morehouse students with the opportunity to govern themselves, and to ensure equality of all students, regardless of nationality, of race, religion, sexual orientation, and socioeconomic status. It is comprised of three branches: the executive branch, the SGA E-Board, the legislative branch, the Student Senate, and the judicial branch, the Honor and Conduct Review Board. The purpose of the executive branch is to uphold Morehouse College's name, to enforce the SGA Constitution, to initiate, coordinate, and implement programs for the benefit of the entire student body, and to carry out the tasks delegated by the SGA executive, legislative, and judicial branches. The purpose of the Student Senate is to create legislation that meets the needs and desires of the Morehouse College student body, and to work tirelessly to argue for the voice of the student body. The purpose of the judicial branch, or the student court, is to hear and adjudicate cases of persons accused of any conduct violation, and to recommend to the Office of Student Conduct and to Student Life for the suspension of a charter of any class or club or organization. And upon that recommendation, they act with the executive office and the Student Senate. However, without the work of our auxiliaries, we wouldn't be the student government that we are. The student government auxiliaries include the Elections Committee, who works tirelessly to ensure that we have fair and free elections, the President's Council, which is headed by the Executive Director, who works to ensure that all club voices are included in our processes, and the work of the class councils, who work tirelessly to provide programming and to establish a student voice amongst all classes. Next up is Student Government Association's advisor, Dean Booker.
Will all elected or appointed SGA officials please stand at this time and raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I state your name, as a duly elected or appointed, state your position of the student body of Morehouse College. Do swear that I will faithfully fulfill the duties of this office as provided in the Student Government Association Constitution and its bylaws. I will strive to establish representative government, maintain academic freedom, and defend student rights. I will work toward the strengthening of the cooperation between the student body, faculty, staff, and administration. While serving this academic year, I plan to better my leadership skills and improve my academic standing. With these thoughts in mind, I shall set as my final goal awareness for the betterment of Morehouse College. I so affirm. You may be seated. Next, we will hear from our SGA President, Mr. Michael Gatewood.
Good morning. Once again, I'd like to welcome you all to the annual SGA Crown Forum and Investiture Service. My name is Michael Gatewood II, and I have the distinct honor of serving as the 83rd SGA President. Each year, the Morehouse SGA Crown Forum is held to officially inaugurate student elected officials and reintroduce the members of the SGA in a formal setting to our brothers. This Crown Forum also provides an opportunity for the SGA to lay out its vision and recommit ourselves to the work that is at the core of our mission, to advocate and advance the interests of the student body in a compelling fashion. Today, we also reaffirm our commitment to being the voice of the student body at every level of decision-making at the college. In order to be effective, however, we must all move forward with a sense of renewed purpose under a collective vision so that we may realize our collective goals. Speaking of vision, today I draw inspiration from Henry David Thoreau, who proclaimed that if you have built castles in the air, your work need not be lost. That is where they are supposed to be. Now put foundations under them. The Bible speaks of vision. Proverbs 29:18 states that where there is no vision, the people perish. And former President Benjamin E. Mays reminds us that it must be born in the mind that the tragedy in life does not lie in not reaching a goal. The tragedy lies in having no goal to reach. For it is not failure, but low aim that is sin. With these words of wise counsel as a backdrop, allow me to share the vision of the Gatewood Chandler administration for the remainder of the academic year. Brothers, I want to offer you a few things that the SGA will focus on for the remainder of the year. Number one, increase visibility and streamline communication. We are undergoing the task of overhauling our website to create a new, user-friendly site that will be the central repository for information pertaining not only to the SGA, but campus-wide events as well. We are also working on re-engaging students with our mass notification system that will update you on important events in real time. These are both efforts to roll back the history of poor or inadequate communication that has far too long been the standard. Number two, public safety. This year I have the pleasure of representing Morehouse on the Student Safety Council Advisory Group. This group is an officially recognized ad hoc committee by the City of Atlanta and was created to maintain communication between the Atlanta City Council, APD, MARTA Police, and Atlanta area college and university student representatives. The aim is to assist in crafting legislation and best practices regarding campus safety in the City of Atlanta. Also, we have been actively engaged in the search for a new chief of police, and we will continue to make this campus safety a top priority for this administration. Finally, we will be focused on college affordability, more efficient and effective academic and support services. The SGA Senate, who's seated here in the front, has established a special committee on graduation, retention, and tuition affordability, which will be charged with closely examining options and common practices as it relates to increasing retention and graduation rates. This committee will work hand in hand with the college's administration to bring a student perspective to this very important issue. I am proud to announce that last week the Senate passed 2 bills that I signed into law to help address some of our issues. Senate Bill number 1 calls for the reestablishment of the Senate districts to streamline communication between senators and brothers here on campus. Senate Bill number 2 calls for a 1-day reading period for midterm examinations. We will work with the provost to help make this a reality for our brothers on campus, and this is just an example of the work that your student leaders have been doing on your behalf. Brothers, as you can see, your student government is aware, we are engaged, and we are committed to the success of each brother on this campus. This work is not easy, but this work is noble. And there is nothing else that we would rather be doing at this time. We will move forward with the same fortitude that gave rise to this institution 147 years ago. Brothers, we ask that as we can recommit ourselves to the mission of student advocacy, you also recommit yourselves to dear old Morehouse and her ideals and in all things that we do. This is our vision. Now it is time to make it a reality. Thank you. Thank you. Next, it gives me great honor to present to some and introduce to others our very own brother, Mr. Jeffrey Golden, class of 2016. Mr. Golden is also an SGA senator, and he is the winner of Sunday's Best Season 7. Please welcome Mr. Golden.
God is able. God is able. God is able, and he won't fail. God is able. God is able. My God is able, and he won't fail. Tell me who can make a mountain move out of my way, and who can make a miracle because of my faith. And when the doctor says no, who can still say yes? And when I'm in trouble, who's right there to help me pass every test? God, my God is able. God is able. God is able, and he won't fail. Tell me who can make a river out of a little stream, and who can tell the clouds to roll back so that the sun can look at me, and tell me who can tell the wind
when to whistle, whistle through the trees. And when I'm in trouble, who's that same God that will come down and rescue me? God, my God, God is able. God is able. God is able. And he won't fail. No, he won't fail. He won't fail. Don't you dare give up. Don't you dare give in. He won't fail. My God is able. God is able. God is able. And he won't fail. I know that God, yeah, God won't. He won't fail. Listen, he'll never leave you. No, he won't forsake you. But he'll be there till the end. Oh, God won't fail. My God, God won't. He won't fail.
Let's give Brother Golden another round of applause. All right. At this time, we would like to recognize some distinguished guests in the building. Would our 11th president, Dr. John Sylvanus Wilson, please stand? Thank you. I believe we also have Spelman's SGA in the building. Spelman SGA, please stand. I'm not sure if Miss Marina White and her court are here, but if they are, would you guys please stand? All right, well, they send their best wishes. Let's give a round of applause to them as well, all right? Okay, and all of you guys are distinguished guests, so thank you for being here, all right? Next up, we'll have Mr. Donnell Williamson, class of 2015, who is the chairman of our elections committee, introduce our speaker.
Well, my name is Donnell Williamson Jr., a senior sociology major from Shelby, North Carolina. There are many words that could be used to describe her: intelligent, educator, caregiver, erudite, mother, and administrator. Maya Angelou said it best: a phenomenal woman, and phenomenal she is. Thus, the honoring of the intellectual Queen Mother, Dr. Ann Wimbush Watts, is altogether fitting and appropriate. For each moment of the distinguished and astounding career of Dr. Watts has been a prototype for greatness. bachelor's degree from Grambling State, master's degree in English language and literature from the University of Wisconsin, master's degree in French language and literature from Atlanta University, PhD in English language and literature from Georgia State University. She is a distinguished professor of English, having taught most recently at Johnson C. Smith University, Spelman College, and the renowned Morehouse College. During her 42-year tenure at the college, Dr. Watts was the first African-American woman to serve as the vice provost and associate vice president of academic affairs at Morehouse. Dr. Watts found and served as the former director of the Morehouse UPS Scholars Program, spearheaded a number of programs for both faculty and student development in conjunction with creating new initiatives at Morehouse College. In addition to working with all three of Morehouse College Rhodes Scholars, Dr. Watts also helped to produce countless finalists and winners of prestigious scholarships while here at the college. Her life trajectory has been committed to intellectual development, playwriting, musical composition, and television production. Dr. Watts is also a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, where she has served in numerous positions within her chapter cabinet. Founder of Kappa Omega Finishing School that mentors disadvantaged teenage women. She is the recipient of a multitude of awards, running the gamut of excellence from the Phoenix Award, which is the Atlanta's highest honor bestowed upon Atlanta's citizen, and the Ebony magazine as the outstanding Morehouse Scholar. Currently, Dr. Watts serves as the president of Powerful Presentations Incorporated, a consulting firm. Therefore, Morehouse College, stand to your feet, as it brings me great honor to introduce the son and present to others the remarkable, brilliant, and astonishing Dr. Ann Wimbush Watts.
Mr. Williamson, for such a gracious and flattering introduction. Thank you from the bottom of my heart to all of you who have welcomed me back with such fervor and with such dignity and with such honor. To the 11th president of Morehouse College, Dr. John Sylvanus Wilson, Jr. Good to see you, Mr. President. To the provost and senior vice president for academic affairs, Dr. Jerry Kai Campbell. To Dr. Timothy Sams, vice president for student services. To Mr. Michael Gatewood, president of the Morehouse College Student Government Association. Mr. Will Chandler, vice president. And to all of the other stalwart men of Morehouse who are officers of this great organization. But to the advisory leadership, Dean Kevin Booker and Mr. Michael Gary. And Dr. Bryant Marks is here, and he wears so many hats, I won't even begin to tell you what they all are. But to the faculty, to the staff, my former colleagues with whom I spent many happy hours celebrating the excellence of this great institution. But especially to you, the men of Morehouse, whose talents and potential have continued even when I left to engage my thoughts for commendation and admiration. And to all of you gathered here this morning, what a signal honor and privilege it is to be in your midst this morning and to celebrate with the Student Government Association the 4th annual Crown Forum focused on leadership development. In a number of earlier cultures, it was customary to ask of someone, by what authority do you speak? Now, if I were posed with such a question this morning, I think I would take a look at my numerous roll books and records of having taught at Morehouse College as a tenured professor full-time each semester, sometimes teaching overloads and every summer for nearly 3 decades prior to becoming an administrator. If you will do the math, you will find out that I have been privileged to teach 5,375 men of Morehouse who are now Morehouse men. Two of whom are my sons, Michael Kevin Watts and Christopher Nolan Watts, both of whom are in the audience today. 5,375 Morehouse men who today form a great cloud of witnesses as professionals, and today whose life and work give testimony to the legacies of this great institution. So it is by that authority that I am honored to speak to you today. As many of you may know, the men of the Morehouse College Student Government Association have been developing their knowledge of leadership constructs under the guidance of Dean Kevin Booker and Mr. Michael Gary. They are using the book, The Student Leadership Challenge, and they're looking at 5 practices for exemplary leaders written by James Coos and Barry Posner. These practices include model the way, inspire a shared vision, challenge the process, enable others to act, and encourage the heart. Let's give these men and their advisors another round of applause. My message begins this morning with a reference to a television program that aired for about 25 seasons back in the 1950s, and it was called To Tell the Truth. The object of the game was to have a group of panelists determine which one of 3 contestants was the real person and which of the 2 of the 3 were imposters. All 3 contestants used the same name, and it was the duty of the panelists to question them to find flaws in their presentations so that they could determine who were the imposters. And then the host would ask the trademark question, will the real Mr. Blank please stand up? The imposters would then make a motion as if to stand, but only one, the real contestant, would eventually stand up. Many years later, today in 2014, we pose a similar question, but this time we ask, will the real Morehouse man please stand up? There has never been a time when great leaders, strong leaders, leaders who are exemplars of the best of character and integrity were needed more than they are needed now. Many of our nation's schools, for example, are faced with unbelievable challenges. A second grader carried a gun to school capable of blowing up a Mack truck. One teenager killed another teenager because of a dispute over a sandwich. A short kid killed a tall kid because he was picking on him. And alarming statistics plague the landscape. 39% of the homeless population in the United States is young people under the age of 18. A Department of Health and Human Services study found that 46% of homeless youth left their home because of physical abuse, and 17% left because of sexual abuse. And more children are born from NBA players in cities where they play than in their own families. And many of these NBA players retire broke because of countless paternity suits, and the list goes on and on and on. We live in a time when the only hope for the African American community is intelligent, focused, and well-educated young women, and especially young men like you, to get involved in the programs of service that address societal ills. We can no longer look to the federal government or to another race to solve our problems. But for you see, it was not until a strong coterie of mostly black leaders, including Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and others from colleges and universities, from churches, from community groups, organized and strategized to challenge the process and to meet head on the ravages of segregation in the South. It was then and only then that change began to take place. If change for the better is going to continue to emerge, then we ourselves must make it happen again. I do not need to remind you that Morehouse College is not the only place in the United States that has produced great leaders, but it just seems to me that a place with this many intelligent young men engaged in the Congress of Development and Learning should also be the place that produces the lion's share of strong leadership in this country. It just makes sense to me. Now, keep in mind that attending Morehouse College alone will not automatically make you a great leader. For leadership comes from a certain development and global exposure, from a certain bent of mind, from a certain character and behavior, a certain engagement of intentional training, and from a certain pattern of choices that one continues to make throughout one's life. In other words, it is a process. So I come to you this morning asking the inexorable question, will the real Morehouse man please stand up? We must also ask that if there are any imposters out there masquerading as the real Morehouse man. For you see, the imposter is sometimes difficult to identify because he operates under the insignia of Morehouse College just like you do. And he places the name Morehouse on everything he owns. But the imposter cannot be depended on when the clarion call is made and the occasion demands his presence, for the imposter never realizes that the hallmark of every great leader is service. The imposter is likely to be one who came to Morehouse, who went through Morehouse, but Morehouse did not go through him. In his years at Morehouse, the imposter would go to class sometimes, but he would never work up to his potential. Instead, the imposter would do just enough to beat by, just enough to get over. But when it came to demonstrating the tenets of servant leadership, when it came to inspiring a vision, when it came to modeling the way, the imposter was always and is always a failure. The world soon finds him out, and the gig is up. In many ways, the imposter was like the man who was a member of the emperor's orchestra in ancient China. He had obtained his position as a flautist, if you will, because his potential as a musician was recognized early in his life. Although the flautist had talent, he never rehearsed, Dr. Oliver. He never trained. He never tried to develop his skills as a flute player. Instead, for many years, he held the flute up against his lips, and when the royal band played, he pretended to be playing along with them. No one detected his duplicity, and for these performances, he received a modest salary and managed to live comfortably. But one day, the emperor decided, I want to have something different. So he called in the flautist and said, I want to have a different presentation. You would like to see a solo performance, and I would like for you to play solo. The flautist was dismayed, and as the day approached, he became desperate. What could he do? All of his pretense had finally caught up with him. He was now in the limelight. He was a leader, and he was unable to model the way. On the morning of his solo appearance, he took poison and died. rather than face the music. And that is why today we still use the expression, he had to face the music, or he was not able to face the music. Every one of you in here this morning, in some form or the other, will one day have to face the music. For when you leave these hallowed halls of Morehouse College, you will many times over be expected to do a solo performance all by yourself with nobody to help you. And you have to be prepared. You have to be ready with a real Morehouse man. Please stand up and face the music. The imposters are everywhere. They can be detected because they don't have their priorities in order. They don't know how to keep proper balance between fun and seriousness and between work and play. Now, I'm sure many of the freshman class know that doing this is not always easy because at Morehouse, as in other schools, temptations are everywhere with parties and jams on the yard, interspersed between, research papers and pop quizzes, when the card games and late night rap sessions in somebody's room are taking place. They compete with book reports due and panel discussion to prepare, with clubs to join and games to attend. You will be challenged over and over and over again to prioritize and to strike a balance between what you want to do and what you know you should do. There will be times when temptations will entice you to act counter to your best self, when the appeal would be to do that which you have been taught all your life not to do. But the party is on, and everybody is going in that direction. But when Cutie Pie Kia, you know, the one with the whispery voice, calls, and before you know it, a full hour has gone by and you have not even cracked one book. Then drop dead gorgeous Taisha calls and talks for 30 whole minutes, all the time with DJ Snake and Lil Jon. Turn down for what? Turn down for what? Turn down for what? Blasting in your ear. And then, lovely Lilton Leisha. Her name is not Leisha. Leisha calls, and she wants to go out. And she reminds you the club's going up on a Tuesday. The club's going up on a Tuesday. The club's going up on a Tuesday. Yet you have 2 tests coming up back to back. You know you have 3 chapters to read, and you know you have a paper to do. Your grades were not very good at midterm, and you simply cannot afford to lose your scholarship. But all you can hear are your boys leaving for the party, running out the door yelling, "We them boys, we them boys, we them boys." When the animal in you says, "Go," and the God in you says, "Yield not to temptation," for yielding is sin. What do? Are you a real Morehouse man enough to turn off your phone and pick up your books and get to work? Or do you pick up your keys instead, promising yourself that you'll leave a little early? But you never do. You never have, and you never will with that attitude. I submit to you this morning that recess is over. It's time to get serious. It's time to get serious. For in the final analysis, it's not about getting down. It's about getting up. In the final analysis, it's not about jiving, it's about surviving. In the final analysis, it's not about boogieing down, it's about climbing up. That is how you stand in the face of controversy, in the face of temptation, in the face of hard choices, determines your character, determines your realness as a Morehouse man. And every time you perform up to your potential, you add eminence to the immense reputation of Morehouse College. On the other hand, every time you fail to do your best, you are letting down your institution. Every time you fail to do your best, you are weakening the value of a Morehouse College degree. Will the real Morehouse man please stand up? For you see, there are millions who did not make it this far. You are one of the ones who did. There are millions who long for an opportunity to sit in a seat at an institution of higher learning. You are fortunate enough to have such an opportunity. These opportunities must not be taken lightly, because the data suggests that there's a downward trend in the number of bachelor's degrees conferred on African Americans through the last 3 decades. Such a declaration is alarming, particularly since without HBCUs, most of the black leadership in this country and their contributions to society would never have been a reality. Thus, you must make the most of your stay here, and you must never take this opportunity for granted. Will the real Morehouse man who prioritizes for excellence please stand up? There's a man who planted a carob tree, C-A-R-O-B, which, as you may know, is a tree that takes 70 years to bear its first fruit. As the man was planting the tree, a passerby came and he said, "Why are you bothering to plant a carob tree? You're not going to live long enough to even eat of its fruit." "Well," said the man, "years ago, my grandfather planted such a tree for me, and I am eating of its fruit today. So now I am planting a carob tree so that someone long after I am gone may likewise enjoy the benefits of my labor." Like that man, you too must be about the business of planting carob trees, for your success today rests in part upon the legacies provided by those who have gone before you. If you say you are a real Morehouse man, then somebody ought to know it. Not by the maroon and white paraphernalia you wear, not by the braggadocio polysyllabic terms you drop every now and then to impress others and make them feel that they are less than you, not even by the awards and plaques hanging on your wall, but by the deeds you engage in to make life better for others. For a real Morehouse man reaches down to pull somebody up, and he reaches back to pull somebody else forward. In the words of Norman Schaefer at the close of life, the question will not be how much do you have, but how much have you given. The question will not be how much have you won, but how much have you done. The question will not be not how much you have saved, but how much you have sacrificed for the good of others. For as long as there is a lower class, I am in it. As long as there is a criminal element, I am of it. And as long as there is a man in jail, I am not free. Will the real Morehouse man, engaged in helping others, please stand? But let me hasten to say that for some of you, getting a college education is a daily struggle and a difficult task, to say the least. For you, success will not always be easy, and achievement will not be found on the railings of a crystal stair. Some of you may be like the students that I've taught before, and I know this is still going on. I hope it's not, but it is across the country, where students are having to sleep in their cars because they cannot afford residential living. Some of you may be like the student in my world literature class years ago, and we were going over work, and he stopped me. He said, "Dr. Watts, I have to make it. I said, yes, you do. And I moved on. He said, Dr. Watts, you don't hear me. I have to make it. And I said, what do you mean? He said, I came from a small town. I came from a family where they did not encourage me. And they said to me, your mother wasn't anything. Your daddy wasn't anything. And you over there at Morehouse College think you're going to be something. You're not going to be anything either. So he said, Dr. Watts, I got to make it. I got to make it. And he did. Another student came in my office and he was talking about the purpose for which he came, and his stomach was growling so that it was disruptive. And I said, Mr. X, what's going on? Your stomach is growling. He said, oh, it does that all the time. I said, are you eating? He said, well, I have paid my bills and all I have left is enough money for a peanut butter and jelly sandwich once a day. And I said, well, how are you managing? He said, I'm working 2 jobs and taking a full load. He said, how do you do that? He said, one job after my classes goes from 6 to 12 in the evening. The second job, 1 to 4 in the morning. I sleep from 4 to 6. I get up and study until my 8:30, and I get ready for my 9 o'clock class. He said, but Dr. Watts, I'm going to make it. I'm going to make it. This is temporary. And he did. Another student came into my office and he said, Dr. Watts, I didn't come to complain. He said, but I'm sleeping in a crawl space of a house. I can't afford residential life. But the gentleman told me I could sleep there for free. But now that the weather is colder and the wind is blowing in and I wake up and I'm soaking wet and I can't stay there anymore. Well, I called 3 real Morehouse men who at that time were class deans. They were the late Dean Thomas Blocker, the late Dean Eddie Gaffney, and the present Dean Alvin Darden. And I said to them, gentlemen, a Morehouse man in the making should not be in a crawl space. A Morehouse man in the making should not be sneezing and coughing with colds and other kinds of ailments. What can you do? Because he's going to need books. He's going to be clothed, need new clothes. They said, we got this, Ann. We got this. We'll take care of it. And they did. And the young man graduated and did well. Now, what do you do when seemingly all the cards are stacked against you? What does one do? Evidence shows that students with a spiritual life tend to be more successful than those who do not have a spiritual life. Accompanied by a belief in a higher power than you to sustain you during difficult times has its place. Whether Jew or Buddhist, whether Muslim or Christian, a strong spiritual life will enable you to navigate the stress and the challenges of modern living. One needs to therefore do what Dr. Howard Thurman calls a love in the rhythm of doing. For you see, every now and then we all need to take a break from the toil and struggles and engage in some quiet time. Dr. Howard Thurman reminds us to center down to that reservoir of the spiritual that is in us. And in those quiet moments, one's idea of the best and the highest takes on an almost transcendent character. And your vision will be clearer. Everything that happened to you in the past will begin to make sense. A sense of calm and peace will come over you. And then once you do that, you're ready to get back up and engage in daily life, but this time with a renewed vigor, a newfound courage to continue on. So center down to find out who you are. Center down to learn the landscape of your dreams. Center down until you access that something that makes you keep going even when your battery may not be working. Your feet will begin to move to the rhythms of other drums. And the mountains which you thought you could never conquer now will seem easier to climb. It was John Miller who said, circumstances and situations do color life. but you have been given the mind to choose what color your life will be. So if you're feeling a little bothered this morning, you might need to do some life redecorating. Send a text or a tweet to your friends and tell them I'm doing some redecorating today. You see, I'm changing out the color scheme in my life. Instead of gloom, I'm coloring it joy. Instead of anger and resentment, I'm coloring it peace and love. Instead of doubt and despair, I'm coloring it faith and hope. And while I'm at it, I've got some junk that I need to throw out that even goodwill will not want. You see, I'm throwing out worry and fear. I'm throwing out loneliness. I'm throwing out feelings of depression and despair. I'm throwing out feelings of inadequacy and an inability to cope. And if they begin to look at you a little strangely, say, well, I'm also, while I'm at it, going to have some cosmetic surgery done. You see, I'm cutting out some of my so-called friends who really don't mean me any good. I'm cutting out some of my so-called running buddies who are not about anything. I'm pruning out those negative people in my life, those who are always finding fault, always criticizing, always discouraging, and always limiting me instead of inspiring me with a shared vision. And above all, I'm cutting out worry about things over which I have no control. Worrying about tuition for next semester and whether or not I can return in January. Worrying about problems back home. Worrying about that relationship where neither one of us is on the same page. I'm cutting out fear over things I cannot change and putting them in the hand of the man who steals the water. I'm cutting out anxiety and stress and giving them to the man who calmed the sea, to the one who didn't bring me this far, to leave me here. So when you see me smiling, I'm learning how to make the best out of a bad situation. When you hear me singing, I will be singing because I'm happy. I will be singing because I'm free. Because in the words of Thomas Todd, I will not allow minor inconveniences to interfere with major achievement. With a real Morehouse College, Morehouse man, please stand up. In closing, you know the story of the train loaded with toys and good things to eat, and it broke down. And there was nobody to pull the cars. The little children were at the top of the mountain waiting for these things, the cargo. Several important engines came along, but none of them wanted to pull the cars up the mountain. But along came a smiling little engine who said, I will do my best to get the train up the mountain. Now, the history doesn't tell us this, but somehow or other, if you would just forgive me, I really believe that was a Morehouse man, a real Morehouse man engine saying, I will go. And then once the cars were hooked up, he began to chant, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can, until finally he was able to climb up the mountain. And in great triumph, the little engine proclaimed, I thought I could, I thought I could, I thought I could. Now this is a simple story, but it has a great deal of meaning. In many ways, you must be like that little engine. You must make it up that mountain because the cargo you will be carrying will be vital and necessary. For at the top of that mountain await the poor and the disenfranchised. At the top of that mountain await the underprivileged and the underserved. The cargo you will be carrying will be leadership, mentorship, role modeling. So hook up your engine this morning and go up that mountain of educational preparedness. It may take you a while, but go on up that mountain. Your financial aid may run out, but go on up that mountain. Funds from home may dry up, but go on up that mountain. You may get laid off from your job, but go on up that mountain. And when the naysayers come, and they will, to discourage you, drown them out with, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can. And when you reach the top of that mountain, like all real Morehouse men, Tell your distractors, I thought I could. I thought I could. I thought I could. So up, up, up that mountain, men of the freshman class, filled with promise and potential, the class of 2018. Up, up, up that mountain, men of the sophomore class, you are halfway there, the dynamic men of the class of 2017. Up, up, up that mountain, men of the mighty junior class, don't you stop. Don't you stop now. Don't you stop, because you're almost there. The strong men of the class of 2016. Up, up, up that mountain, men of the senior class, the determined and distinguished men of the class of 2015. Victory is almost yours. So you go on up that mountain, for you can see clearly now. The rain is gone. Gone are the dark clouds that had you blind. You can see clearly now. The pain is gone. All the bad feelings have disappeared. Look up and you will see the rainbow you have been praying for. It's gonna be a bright, sunshiny day. And commendations for your tenacity, commendations for your perseverance are already being writ on the walls of excellence and achievement. A new day is dawning. A new hope is on the horizon. Yesterday is gone, and tomorrow is full of promise. The bells are ringing. The birds are singing. The time is now. So will the real Morehouse man please, please, please stand up.
Excuse me. Thank you. Gentlemen, would you please take your seats? The provost has allowed a 5-minute grace period for the next class, so please stay for the remainder of the program. We'll be only a couple minutes, all right? All right. Thank you. At this time, it gives me great pleasure to present this award to Dr. Ann Wimbush-Watts on behalf of the Morehouse College SGA. Let's please give her another round of applause. All right?
And also on behalf of the Student Government Association, especially the Senate, we'd like to present you with these flowers.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
I feel set up, everyone. I think some of you understand what I mean. How do you follow that? What do you say, right? But first, in terms of this setup, they put me behind Mr. Golden, right? And then they made it even worse by putting me behind Dr. Ann Wimbush-Watts. So I've been set up. So the question is, what do you say after all of this? I learned a long time ago, nothing, right? But I will do this. I will say this to you. There are many who believe that in the African world, time is kept through phenomena, or what is called phenomenology. It is that from event to event, people record time. This was one of those events. This was truly one of those events. This event was not only made possible by Dr. Watts, by Mr. Golden, but it was also, and I'm just going to read real quickly, because you have the list of folks who made this moment very special. You have the chairs, Dr. Marks and Dean Booker. You have Dr. Oliver, Mr. Weathersby, Mr. Okonkwo, Mr. Chandler, Mr. Gatewood, Mr. Golden, Mr. Williamson, and then finally, in this phenomenon. There's nothing like a phenomenon that's led by what? A queen mother. And you can always tell a queen mother not by her regalness, which you all saw, but she said to you when she stepped up here that she has educated over 5,000 Morehouse men. That's a queen mother. To have the ability to send men across the world who make a difference. That's a queen mother. So this phenomenon was made possible by the list of folks I just referred to, but most especially by a queen mother. And I'm going to say this, and I'll sit down. Will the real Morehouse men and everyone else please stand up one more time to give this queen mother a round of applause. Thank you.
Hey, gentlemen, let's please lock up for the singing of the college's hymn. Thank you.